I'm a blind receptionist and I want to tell you about a terrifying memory I've never forgotten. I've been working the reception desk at a motel for about 15 years. Being blind, you might think it's a tough job, but I've gotten used to it. There's audio software on the computer, I know the layout of every room by heart, and honestly, most of the work is just listening. Footsteps on gravel, car doors slamming, voices in the hallway. When you can't see their faces, you learn to read people just by their voices. This motel isn't a luxury establishment. Truckers pass by, construction workers stay for weeks, and occasionally, a family breaks down on the interstate. Most of our long-term guests pay weekly in cash. We sometimes encounter strange people, but over time you learn not to ask too many questions. People come here when they want to disappear for a while, and it doesn't bother me at all. It was a cool night in March. At about dawn, I heard a child's voice outside room 5. While I was sorting out registration cards, I heard this thin, high-pitched voice just outside the office window. "Is anyone there?" the child said. "Is anyone there?" I paused, listening. The voice was so young, maybe 4 or 5 years old. After a moment, he repeated it, exactly the same inflection, like he was reading from a script. "Is anyone there?" "Hey there," I called. "You okay, buddy?" The voice stopped. Then, after what felt like forever, he said it again. "Is anyone there?" I walked outside, using my cane to weave around the small patio chairs. The morning air was cool and I could smell the coffee brewing in the room nearby. The old lady always brewed coffee around this time. But there was something else in the air, something metallic and sharp I couldn't quite place. "Where are you, sweetheart?" I called out. "Here," the child said, and his voice was coming from the direction of room 5. "Is anyone there?" I moved toward his voice, my cane tapping against the concrete walkway. When I got close enough, I could hear his breathing, small and steady. "What's your name?" I asked. "I don't know," he said, his voice completely flat. No emotion, no confusion, just blank. "Where are your mommy and daddy?" "I don't know them." That sent a chill through me. The way he said it wasn't like a scared child who was lost. It was matter of fact, like he was stating the weather. "Are they in the room?" I asked, gesturing toward where I thought room 5 was. "Is anyone there?" he said again. I reached out carefully and felt the door frame of room 5. The child was standing right there, and I could sense his small hand pressed against the door. His voice was coming from just below my waist level. "They're not answering," he said in that same empty voice. My heart began to beat faster. Something was terribly wrong here. I went back to the office, pulled out the logbook, and ran my fingers over the braille labels I'd added to organize the records. Room 5 had been rented the night before by a couple with a child. Cash payment, no registered vehicle. I went back outside. The child was still there, still standing with his hand against the door. "Honey, I'm going to knock on the door, okay?" I said. I knocked 3 times, loud enough to wake everyone inside. "Sir, ma'am, this is reception." Nothing. I knocked again, harder. "Sir, ma'am, your son is here." Still nothing. But now I could smell it stronger, that metallic scent I'd noticed earlier. It was coming from under the door, seeping through the gap. "They're not waking up," the child whispered behind me. My hands were shaking as I pulled out the key. I thought I should call the police. What if they were just fast asleep? What if I was overreacting? Our security guard was off today, so it was just me and whatever was waiting behind that door. I turned the key and cracked the door open. The smell hit me hard. It was blood, lots of it, fresh blood mixed with something else, something sweet and sickening. I gagged and backed away. "Is anyone there?" the boy asked again, his hushed voice right behind me. I pushed the door open wider, though every instinct in my body was screaming at me to run. I took 1 step inside, my cane extended in front of me. The carpet squelched under my feet, sticky and wet. I could hear flies buzzing, and my cane hit something hard and sharp on the floor, glass by the sound of it when I tapped it. "They're not waking up," the child whispered from behind me again, and this time his voice was so close it made me jump. I backed out of the room quickly, pulling the door almost closed but leaving it unlocked. "Hey buddy," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Why don't you come with me to the office? I have some juice boxes in the mini fridge." "Okay," he said, and I heard his small footsteps following me. I called 911 from the office phone, my hands shaking so badly I had to dial twice. The child sat quietly in one of the plastic chairs while I explained the situation to the dispatcher. I kept glancing toward where I knew he was sitting, wishing desperately that I could see his face, see what was in his eyes. The police arrived within 10 minutes, their cars crunching on the gravel parking lot. I met them outside and explained what I'd found. Officer, who I recognized by his voice from previous incidents at the motel, took my statement while another officer went into room 5. Jesus Christ, I heard him mutter from inside the room. He came back out quickly. We need the coroner, he called to his partner. They asked me the same questions over and over. When did I first hear the child? When was the room rented? Did I see guests check in? Did I hear anything during the night? I told them everything I remembered and knew. While we waited for the detectives and the coroner, the child sat in the office. One of the officers had given him a box of crayons and some paper from my desk. I could hear him coloring, the waxy crayons scratching against the paper. "What are you drawing, sweetheart?" Officer asked him. "Mommy and Daddy are sleeping," the child whispered. My blood went cold. The way he said it, so matter of fact, so knowing. This child had seen something, understood something, and yet he seemed completely detached from it. A woman from Child Protective Services arrived around noon. She had a gentle voice and spoke to the child quietly, patiently. She asked him his name, his age, if he remembered anything about yesterday. But he only gave the same responses. "I don't know, and is anyone there?" When it came time for him to leave, he went without any fuss. No crying, no clinging to anything familiar, no looking back. I heard their car pull away on the gravel, and then he was just gone. The police spent the rest of the day in and out of room 5. I heard them talking in low voices, the sound of cameras clicking, footsteps going back and forth. They removed almost everything from the room as evidence, the bedding, pieces of carpet, chunks of drywall. They never told me exactly what happened in there, just that it was a domestic incident and that 2 people were dead. Room 5 was cleaned professionally after the police released it, but I could still sense something wrong with it. Even now, years later, when I have to go near it to check other rooms, I can feel that something terrible happened there. The air feels heavier, the silence more complete. I think about that child a lot. I wonder where he ended up, if someone was able to help him, if he ever started talking normally again. I've seen overdoses in other rooms, heart attacks, even a suicide once in room 7. But room 5 feels different. It feels like grief has soaked into the walls. Sometimes, late at night when I'm doing paperwork, I swear I can still hear that small voice out there in the darkness. Is anyone there? Calling for parents who will never answer again. I should have known something was wrong the moment I walked through the door. My guide dog Murphy had been acting strangely at work all morning. He was restless, whining softly every time we passed certain people in the office. Dogs understand things we don't, especially if you rely on them like I do. Business was slow at work. My manager had sent me home early, saying there wasn't much to do today. My girlfriend Hannah was home alone. We'd been together for 2 years and I thought everything was going well. I thought I recognized her. When I first walked in, an unfamiliar scent hit me. Then I heard voices coming from the bedroom. Hannah's heartfelt laughter followed by an unfamiliar male voice. I stood in the living room, my hands still clutching Murphy's harness, trying to process what I was hearing. The floorboards in our old apartment creaked with every movement, and I could hear everything. The bed springs, the words they whispered, the sounds that needed to be spoken to me. My chest felt like it was caving in. 2 years of believing someone truly loved me. I turned around and walked out, taking Murphy with me. He seemed relieved to be gone, his tail wagging slightly as he descended the stairs. I didn't slam the door. I didn't confront them. What was the point? The betrayal was complete, and nothing I could say could change it. The afternoon air was damp and I could smell the rain. Murphy led me through the familiar streets of our neighborhood, but I wasn't paying much attention to where we were going. My mind replayed every conversation Hannah and I had shared, searching for signs I'd missed. Was he lying when he told me he loved me? We walked with my dog for hours. My legs ached, my shirt was soaked with sweat, and when I finally stopped and tried to get my bearings, Murphy was out of breath. The familiar sounds of our neighborhood, children playing, lawnmowers running, dogs barking, had vanished. Instead, I heard the steady hum of traffic coming from a major highway. "Where are we, kid?" I asked Murphy, running my hand along his back. He was calmer now, but I could feel the tension in his muscles. He had worked hard to keep us safe while I was reeling from my emotional turmoil. Listening to the sounds around me, I realized we were in front of a motel. We'd walked all the way to the interstate, probably 3 miles from home. The thought of going back to that apartment, facing Hannah and her explanations and apologies, made me sick. I felt around until I found the office door and pushed it open. A bell rang upstairs, and I heard someone stirring behind the counter. "Can I help you?" The voice belonged to an old man, worn out from years of smoking. "I need a room for tonight," I said. "Just me and my dog." "A guide dog?" "Yeah." I heard the rustle of papers. $68. "Are you paying cash or card?" I held out my credit card and listened as he swiped it through an old machine, wheezing and clicking. The whole place smelled like disinfectant trying to mask decades of cigarette smoke and God knows what else. But it was anonymous, and that was all I needed right now. "Room 23, he said, pressing a key into my palm. "Down the hall, about halfway down. There's a vending machine at the end if you need anything." Murphy led me to the room and I fumbled until the lock clicked. It was small and musty with the kind of carpet that felt damp no matter how dry. I sat on the bed and buried my face in my hands. That's when I remembered the bottle of whiskey Hannah had given me for my birthday last month. I'd brought it to work today, planning to share it with some colleagues after hours to celebrate finishing a big project. Instead, I pulled it out of my briefcase and opened it. The whiskey burned as I drank it, but it felt good. It felt like something I could control. Murphy curled up on the floor next to the bed, occasionally looking up to check on me as he slowly finished the bottle. I wasn't a big drinker. Being blind meant you had to be careful about losing control of your faculties, but tonight I didn't care. By the time I'd finished half the bottle, my anger had turned to dull sadness. My phone was buzzing with calls and texts from Hannah. I didn't want to hear her voice. I didn't want her explanations or her tears. Around 9 o'clock, my stomach started growling. I hadn't eaten since breakfast, and even though the whiskey had dulled most of my senses, I knew I needed food. Murphy needed to go out too. He'd been patient with me all day, but I could hear him shifting restlessly near the door. "Come on, kiddo, let's find dinner." The motel was part of a small complex that also included a gas station and a 24-hour diner. Murphy guided me through the parking lot, carefully avoiding the potholes and puddles left by the previous downpour. The diner smelled of grease and coffee, and I could hear the sizzle of burgers on the grill. I ordered a cheeseburger and fries with a vanilla milkshake. The young girl behind the counter was friendly, asking about Murphy and praising how well-behaved he was. It was the first normal human interaction I'd had all day, and I nearly burst into tears. Back in the room, I ate mechanically, barely tasting the food. Murphy took his. I always traveled with a small bag of food. I was just starting to think about going to sleep when I heard the scream. It was coming from somewhere outside, a shrill, desperate sound, the kind that chills your blood. Murphy jumped to his feet, his ears perked up. I grabbed my white cane from next to the bed and walked toward the door. The scream came again, closer this time, and I could hear footsteps running along the concrete walkway outside. I opened the door and stepped outside, and Murphy huddled beside me. "They're coming," a woman screamed. "They're all going to die. Everyone in here is going to die." I could hear doors opening along the hallway, and other guests came out to see what was happening. "Ma'am, you need to calm down," the receptionist said. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" "You don't understand," she shouted. "There's going to be a massacre. If we don't leave now, everyone here will die tonight," the woman said. Goosebumps ran down my spine. There was something in her voice, a raw, helpless terror that seemed real. Murphy crept up to me, a low growl in his chest. "Look, ma'am, I don't know what you're doing, but you're scaring the other guests," the receptionist said. I heard a scuffle, the cashier yelling, and then she started screaming too. "Oh my God, she bit me! Damn it, she bit me!" Chaos erupted. Doors were slamming, people were shouting, car engines were starting up in the parking lot. I could hear at least 3 different families loading up their vehicles and getting out of there as fast as they could. "Everyone stay calm." This was a new voice, deeper and more authoritative. Probably the manager. "Ma'am, I need you to step back and let me help you. You're bleeding. Are you hurt?" The woman was crying now, great heaving sobs that seemed to come from the depths of her soul. "There's a baby," she whispered, and her voice carried clearly in the sudden quiet. "There's a baby that needs saving." "What baby?" the manager asked gently. "Where's the baby?" "They took it," she said. "The demons took it. And there's one coming here tonight. A demon pretending to be blind. He looks normal, but he can see everything. He can see into your soul." My blood went cold. Murphy pressed even closer to me, and I could feel his body trembling. "Ma'am, there's no demon here," the manager said. "You're safe. Let me call someone to help you." "No," she screamed. "You don't understand. He's already here. And then she saw me. I don't know how I knew, but I felt her gaze lock onto me like a physical weight. The air around us went completely silent. "There," she shrieked, and I heard her footsteps running toward me. "There's the devil, I can see him." Murphy barked and tried to pull me back toward the room, but it was too late. She slammed into me with surprising force, knocking my cane from my hand and sending me stumbling backward. "I know you can see," she screamed, her fingers clawing at my face. "You're not blind. You're the devil, and I know you can see." Her nails raked across my cheek, and I could feel warm blood trickling down my jaw. Murphy was barking frantically, trying to get between us, but she kept coming at me. "Get away from me," I shouted, trying to push her off. "I can't see. I'm actually blind." "Liar," she screamed. "Demon, devil, I can see the evil in your eyes." Strong hands grabbed her from behind, pulling her away from me. The manager and the desk clerk, despite his injured hand, had come to my rescue. "That's enough," the manager shouted. "Lady, you're attacking an innocent man." She fought against them, still screaming about demons and devils, her voice becoming more and more unhinged. I could hear sirens in the distance, getting closer. "Please," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm actually blind. I have been for 15 years. I can't see anything." But she wasn't listening. Even as the manager and clerk held her back, she kept screaming at me, "Devil, demon, I know what you are." The police arrived with lights flashing and radios crackling. I heard car doors slamming and heavy footsteps approaching. "Officers," the manager called out, "this woman attacked one of our guests. She's been acting erratically, and she bit my clerk." "Ma'am, I need you to calm down," one of the officers said in a firm but controlled voice. "Can you tell me your name?" "They're with you," she screamed. "You're all his soldiers, the devil's soldiers." I heard a struggle, the officers trying to restrain her, and then the distinctive crackling sound of a taser. The woman's screaming stopped abruptly, and I heard her body hit the pavement. "Jesus," the manager muttered. "Is she okay?" "She's breathing," the officer replied. "Paramedics are on their way." The next few minutes were a blur of activity. The paramedics arrived and loaded the woman onto a stretcher, sedating her before putting her in the ambulance. One of the officers took my statement while another talked to the manager and the desk clerk who needed medical attention for his bite wound. "Sir, are you injured?" the officer asked me. I touched my cheek where she'd scratched me. "Just some scratches, I'm fine." "Can you tell me what happened?" I explained about hearing the commotion and coming outside to see if I could help. The officer was professional and thorough, but I could tell he thought the whole situation was bizarre. "Has anything like this happened before?" he asked the manager. "Never," the manager replied. "Nothing even close to this." Poor woman seemed completely out of her mind. After the police left and the ambulance disappeared into the night, the motel fell into an uneasy quiet. My hands were still shaking from the adrenaline, and the scratches on my face stung. I realized I was hungry again. The terror had burned through the burger I'd eaten earlier. "You okay, sir?" the manager asked, approaching me cautiously. "I think so," I said, just shaken up. "I'm really sorry about this. This has never happened before. I'll comp your room for tonight, and if you need anything at all, just let me know." I thanked him and made my way back to the diner with Murphy. The teenage girl from earlier was still there, and her eyes went wide when she saw the scratches on my face. "Oh my God, are you okay?" We heard all the sirens. "I'm fine," I said. "Just a little accident. Could I get some fries and another milkshake?" The food helped settle my nerves, and the sugar from the milkshake cleared some of the whiskey fog from my brain. But every time I closed my eyes, I could hear that woman's voice screaming about demons and devils. The way she'd looked at me, even though I couldn't see her, I could feel the intensity of her gaze, the absolute conviction in her voice. Back in the room, I tried to sleep, but every sound made me jump. Murphy seemed restless too, getting up periodically to check the door and the windows. Around 2 in the morning, I gave up and decided to take him for a walk. The motel was completely silent now. Murphy and I walked slowly around the building, both looking for any signs of trouble. We walked until we felt truly tired. Then we returned to the room. I finally fell asleep around 4 in the morning, and when I woke, sunlight filtered through the thin curtains. My phone, which I'd turned back on the night before, was buzzing with missed calls and texts from Hannah, but I ignored them. Instead, I turned on the small TV to watch the local news. The night's incident was the main topic of the morning broadcast. The deranged woman who attacked me last night had shot a blind man outside a restaurant downtown before coming here. My blood ran cold. According to witnesses, he claimed the man was merely pretending to be blind and was actually a demon. He shot him 3 times before fleeing the scene in a stolen vehicle. The reporter continued with more details, but I'd heard enough. The woman who attacked me, who called me a devil and claimed I could see, had tried to kill another blind man just hours before arriving at the motel. If the manager and the receptionist hadn't intervened, if Murphy hadn't been there to protect me, I might have been his second victim. I should have been terrified. I should have been traumatized by coming so close to being killed by a complete stranger who thought my disability made me a bad person. Instead, I felt unexpected relief, even gratitude. Hannah's betrayal, which had seemed like the end of the world just 24 hours earlier, suddenly felt manageable, insignificant even. I was alive. A few scratches aside, I was unharmed. Murphy was safe. Everything else was a problem I could solve. I quickly packed my things and left the motel. Sometimes the worst days of your life are the ones that save you. What happened that night at the motel was a whole different kind of darkness. We were on our way to Jimmy's family reunion in Tennessee, a 12-hour drive with our 2 children. We pulled into a roadside motel to get some sleep and rest during the trip. From Jimmy's description, there wasn't much to see. It looks like it hasn't been renovated since the 80s, he said as we pulled into the parking lot. The receptionist was friendly, a middle-aged woman with a southern accent. Our room was on the ground floor. As I entered, I ran my hands along the walls trying to find my bearings. 2 double beds, a small table, a dresser with an old television on it. The carpet was worn underfoot, and there was that distinct motel smell, industrial cleaners, and the scent of travelers passing through over the decades. Emma took the bed closest to the window, and Marcus curled up next to me on the other bed. Just then there was a knock on our door. "Who's there?" Jimmy called, walking toward the door. I heard him look through the peephole. "Maintenance," came a harsh voice from outside. "I need to check something right away." Jimmy hesitated. "It's a little late for maintenance," he said. "It'll be less than a minute, sir. I just need to check the window cabinet." Something in the man's voice made my skin crawl. Over the years, I'd developed keen instincts and learned to pick out people by the subtleties in their voices. "Could you come back in the morning?" Jimmy asked. "The kids are getting ready for bed." There was a silence, then a different voice, older and more authoritative. "Son, we really need to go in. It'll only be a few minutes." I slowly stood up, my heart pounding. "I'm sorry, but this is bothering us," Jimmy said more firmly. "Please come back in the morning." The old man's voice changed completely. There was no trace of kindness. "Open that door now, or we're going to have serious trouble." That's when I realized we were in serious trouble. I reached out and pulled both children with me. Emma started to ask what was going on, but I gently silenced her. Jimmy was fiddling with his phone, probably trying to call reception, when we heard a key in the lock. The door opened with a loud click. "It's much easier this way," the old man said as he entered. I heard at least 2, maybe 3 footsteps, heavy work boots on the thin carpet. "Get out," Jimmy said, his voice trembling. "Get out now, or I'll call the police." "No, you're not." The old man's voice was calm, almost conversational. As I sat down, I heard a chair scrape across the floor. "We'll all have a nice, quiet chat. There's no need to involve anyone else." The smell of cigarette smoke filled the room. I held the children tighter against me, feeling Emma shiver. "The gentleman who stayed here last night seems to have lost something very valuable, a necklace that belonged to his late mother. It has sentimental value, you know," the old man said. "We checked in a few hours ago," Jimmy said. "We didn't see anything." "That's the problem," the old man said, "because that necklace was definitely in this room, and the cleaning staff swears they didn't clean it. So where do you think it went?" Emma was crying, trying to suppress her voice. "My children are scared," Jimmy said. "Why don't we ask them what they saw?" "No," I said. "Leave them alone." "Ma'am, you need to step aside," the young voice said. I heard Emma take a sharp breath. Then Marcus say in a low voice, "We didn't do anything wrong." "Of course you didn't, little ones," the old man said, and I could hear him smiling. "Come here so we can talk properly." "Don't," I said desperately, but I heard his bare feet on the carpet. "That's it," the old man said. "Now I'm going to ask you both a very simple question. When you walked into this room tonight, did you find anything that didn't belong to you? Maybe something shiny, something your parents hid for safekeeping?" "We didn't find anything," Emma said. "Are you sure about that, honey? Because sometimes kids find treasures and forget to tell their parents about them." "We're telling the truth," Marcus said. The old man's voice changed, becoming colder. "This is disappointment. Because if someone takes my friend's necklace and doesn't return it, it would upset me. And when I'm upset, bad things sometimes happen to people." He paused, "especially to beautiful mothers who can't see the danger." Emma began to cry even harder. "Please don't hurt our mother," she sobbed. Please, we didn't take anything. My heart was breaking as I listened to my daughter beg this monster not to hurt me. I wanted to run to him and take both my children in my arms, but I was frozen with terror. Then I heard Marcus say in a low voice, "Is this what you're looking for?" The room fell dead silent. I heard the old man stand up, his chair scraping back. "Wow, look what we have here," he said. "Where did you find this, son?" One of the other men asked. "It was under the bed," Marcus said quietly. "I saw him playing with it before." I felt a mixture of relief and surprise. Was there really a necklace? Had Marcus found it and said nothing? Or was he just trying to protect us? "Clever boy," the old man said. "Very clever boy indeed. That's exactly what we were looking for. Ain't that right, gentlemen?" Murmurs of agreement from the other men. "Now let's take this and be on our way." And I trust everyone in this room will understand that this little conversation never happened. We were never here, you never saw us, and there's no need for anyone to involve any pesky authorities. Are we clear? "Yes," Jimmy said quickly. "Very clear." I heard the old man move toward the door. "Now good night, everyone. And remember, we never existed." The door closed with a soft click, and we heard his footsteps disappear down the hall. Jimmy ran to the door and threw off the bolt and security chain. For a long time, none of us moved. Then Emma ran toward me, sobbing. I held both my children in my arms, feeling Marcus's small body press against mine. "We can't stay here," I told Jimmy. "We have to go. Now." "It's almost 11, he said, but his voice said he agreed with me. "I don't care. Pack everything up." Within 20 minutes, we were on our way. The kids curled up in the back seat with blankets and pillows. I sat in the passenger seat, my hands still shaking, and listened to Jimmy's calm breathing as he drove through the night. We arrived at his family's house at 4:30, exhausted but safe. Jimmy's mother looked at us with alarm and asked what had brought us so early. We explained that we couldn't find a motel, so we hadn't stopped. Marcus only told the truth years later. There was no necklace under the bed. He had so quietly removed the small cross from around my neck that I hadn't noticed. My 5-year-old son had sacrificed my most precious piece of jewelry, a gift from my grandmother, to save his family. The bravery of that act still takes my breath away. Looking back, that night was the most terrified I've ever been in my life. Not because I was blind and couldn't see the danger, but because I could hear the threat in that man's voice, could feel the evil radiating from him like heat from a fire. The thought that my children might be hurt, that something terrible might happen to them while I sat there helpless, that was a darkness deeper than any I'd ever known. I pray no parent ever has to experience that kind of fear. The memory of Emma's voice pleading for my safety, of Marcus's quiet courage in the face of real danger, those sounds are burned into my mind forever. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, thinking I hear that knock on the door again, and I have to get up and check on the kids, even though they're teenagers now. We never found out who those men really were, or what they actually wanted. But I know this, evil exists in this world, and sometimes it comes knocking in the middle of the night, and when it does, you have to hope that love and courage are enough to see you through until morning. I'll tell you about a terrifying experience that happened to me in the town I went to for vacation. I've been blind, not since birth. Most people think being blind makes you helpless and defenseless. But what they don't realize is that when you can't see, your other senses become razor sharp. You learn to read people by their voices, their breathing, their movements. You develop a danger instinct that most sighted people never need. I went on vacation with my guide dog Odin, who's been with me since I started university. I needed a vacation after my exams. Odin and I were going to spend a long weekend at the beach. I'd booked the cheapest motel I could find online, one of those rundown places catering to college kids and those who couldn't find anything better. When we entered the lobby, the motel smelled of cigarette smoke and disinfectant. The clerk, who sounded like he smoked 3 packs a day, handed me the key to room 12. "It's on the ground floor, next to the ice machine," he said. "You'll hear it running at night, but most people don't mind." Odin guided me down the narrow hallway to the room. The carpet was thin and sticky underfoot. The room was at the end of the hallway. The key got stuck in the lock, but I managed to open it. The room was exactly as I'd expected. A double bed with springs that squeaked when I sat down, a small wall-mounted television, and the smell of countless previous guests. I didn't care. I was only staying one night. After settling in, I decided to take Odin for a walk. The beach was only 2 blocks away, and after a 3-hour drive, we both wanted to stretch our legs. As we headed toward the motel parking lot, Odin carefully navigated potholes and broken asphalt. That's when it happened. As I was walking along the sidewalk toward the main road, someone bumped into me from the side, hard. The impact knocked me off balance and I stumbled, nearly tripping over Odin's leash. "Watch where you're going," a woman snapped. Her voice was deep and gravelly, as if she'd been yelling or smoking for years. "I'm sorry," I said, regaining my composure. "People like you shouldn't be out here alone." Her words hit me like a physical blow. I dealt with ignorant comments before, but the pure malice in her voice was something else entirely. Odin whimpered softly beside me, sensing my distress. "He's a guide dog," I said quietly. "Trained." "I don't care what he is," she interrupted. "Keep him away from me." I heard her footsteps fade away, the harsh click of her heels on the concrete growing fainter. My hands were shaking as I knelt down to check on Odin, running my fingers through his fur to make sure he was okay. He leaned his head against my chest, comforting me in a way only dogs can. "It's okay, kid," I whispered. As we continued our walk, I tried to shake off the impact of the encounter, but the woman's words echoed in my head. There was something unsettling about the way she spoke, the disproportionate anger of accidentally bumping into someone, but I pushed the thought away. We went to a small fried chicken restaurant. The smell of oil and spices made my stomach growl. I found a booth in the corner and ordered a two-person meal with fries. I was halfway through my meal when someone approached my table. "Excuse me," said a male voice. He was middle-aged, maybe in his 40s, with a slight southern accent. "I apologize for disturbing you, but I was wondering if you could help me with something." I looked up from my food. "Sure, what can I do for you?" "I'm looking for my wife," he said, sliding into the booth across from me. "She's been missing for 3 days, and I'm dying to find her." There was something rehearsed about the way he spoke, as if he had told this story many times. I put down my fork and listened. "Her parents died in a car accident 2 weeks ago," he continued. "She had a really hard time. They were all she had left besides me, you know? After the funeral, she had a kind of breakdown. She started talking about having to find them, like they were hiding somewhere." He paused, and I heard him take a shaky breath. "She left 3 nights ago while I was at work. She packed a bag and disappeared. I drove up and down the coast checking every motel, every restaurant. The police say there's nothing they can do because she went off on her own, but I'm worried she'll hurt herself." I knew what it was like to lose someone you love, to feel helpless and helpless. "I'm sorry," I said. "It feels awful." About 35, medium build, maybe 5'6". He has a distinctive, deep voice. He paused again. "Have you met anyone who fits that description?" My blood ran cold. The description matched the woman from before perfectly, right down to the deep voice. But something about this man's story didn't sit right with me. Specifically, the way he approached me, a blind person dining alone. The polish of his story made it feel like he'd rehearsed it. "No," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've never seen anyone like that." He was silent for a long time. Even though I couldn't see his face, I could feel him studying me. He thanked me and left, but I could feel his presence lingering at the restaurant entrance. I sat there for another 10 minutes, picking at my fries and trying to understand what had just happened. Every voice in my head screamed that something was wrong with that man's story. When I finally left the restaurant, Odin drove me back to the motel. The evening air was humid, and I could hear the waves crashing in the distance. We were almost to the parking lot when someone called out. "Hey!" I recognized the voice immediately. It was the same woman from earlier, but this time the tone was completely different. It was apologetic, almost gentle. "I wanted to apologize," she said, slowly approaching. "For earlier, I mean. I was having a really bad day, but that's no excuse for how I treated you and your dog." I stopped walking, and Odin stood beside me. "It's okay," I said, though I wasn't sure I really meant it. "No, it's okay," she insisted. "I treated you terribly. I've been under a lot of stress lately, but that doesn't make it any better." There was genuine regret in her voice, but also something else, maybe fear or exhaustion. "Are you staying here?" she asked. "Just for tonight," I said. We stood there in awkward silence for a moment. Then, almost without thinking, I asked, "Have you lost anyone recently? In your family, I mean." The question seemed to catch her off guard. "What? No. Why did you ask?" "Someone was looking for you, at the restaurant. A man named Richard. He said you disappeared after his wife's family died." I heard her take a quick breath. "Oh my God," she whispered. "He found me." "Who found you?" "My husband." The word came out like a curse. "Ex-husband, I mean. I left him a week ago." My stomach dropped. "Why?" "Because he was going to kill me," she said simply. "He's been getting worse for years." Started with pushing, then hitting. Last week he put me in the hospital with 3 broken ribs. When I got out, I knew I had to run. The man from the restaurant, Richard, he seemed so convincing, genuinely worried. But now I realized what I smelled in him. Not just cologne and metal, but something else. Violence. The barely contained anger some people carry like a weapon. "You didn't tell him you saw me, did you?" she asked, and I could hear the panic in her voice. "No," I said. I lied. I heard her breathe out in relief. "Thank you, you don't know how much this means to me." "What's your name?" I asked. "Angelina," she said. "I'm Adam. Adam, can you come into my room for a minute? I have coffee, and I want to thank you." I hesitated. Every rule of personal safety I'd learned said I shouldn't enter a stranger's room. But this woman was clearly frightened, and she was polite enough to apologize for her previous behavior. I said okay. We went to her room. I heard her moving around, making coffee with what looked like a small kettle. "I've been staying in cheap motels for a week," she said from the kitchen, paying cash, trying not to leave a trace. I thought I was being careful. "How did he find you?" "I don't know. Maybe he checked every motel on the coast like he told you," I said. She brought me a cup of coffee. "The story about my family, it's not true. My parents have been dead for 15 years. He was always a good liar." We talked for another hour. Angelina told me about her marriage, how Richard had gradually alienated her from her friends and family, how the abuse had escalated over time. She showed me, or tried to, the bruises on her arms, then remembered I couldn't see them. "He always said no one would believe me," she said. "He said I was too stupid and worthless to care what happened to me. I've managed to escape him for now." When I finally got back to my room, I felt I'd done the right thing. Angelina was safe tonight, and tomorrow she could move to another city and distance herself from Richard. I fell asleep feeling strangely protective of a woman I'd just met. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of breaking wood. It came from the room next door, Angelina's room. Then I heard her scream, "No, please, Richard, I'm sorry." A man's voice, low and threatening. "Did you really think you could run from me?" There was a sound like someone hitting the wall, followed by Angelina crying and pleading. I found my phone, called 911, and called the police. As I spoke, I heard more banging, more Angelina crying, then a sudden terrifying silence. Seconds later, I heard Richard's voice in the hallway. "I know you're in there," he said. His voice was calm now, almost conversational. "The blind man from the restaurant. You lied to me." My heart was pounding in my ribs. Odin whimpered softly beside the bed. I heard a door slam, Angelina's room, then heavy footsteps in the hallway, moving away from my door. A few minutes later, a truck engine roared to life in the parking lot. I waited until I heard sirens before leaving my room. By then, the other motel guests, drawn by the noise, had also come out. Someone was knocking on Angelina's door. "She's not answering," a woman said. "The door's broken," a man added. I heard someone try the handle. "It's not locked." They found Angelina unconscious on the floor, barely breathing. I could tell by the paramedics' voices as they arrived, their urgent clinical conversations with each other. The police took my statement, but there wasn't much I could tell them. I'd heard the attack and called for help, but I'd never seen Richard clearly. "We've got a search report on the vehicle," one of the officers told me. "A white pickup truck, missing license plates. We'll find him." Angelina was still alive when they loaded her into the ambulance. I wanted to go with her to make sure she was okay, but they wouldn't let me. I wasn't family. The next morning I left the motel and went home. My vacation was ruined, but that seemed unimportant now. All I could think about was Angelina lying in her hospital bed and Richard still free somewhere out there. 3 days later, I got a call. Angelina would recover, but she would need surgery for her injuries. They'd identified Richard's true identity from the motel's security cameras and arrested him. He was charged with assault, battery, theft, and violating a restraining order Angelina had taken out years ago but never enforced. "She wants to thank you," the detective said. I never spoke to Angelina directly, but a week later I received a card in the mail. I kept the card in my desk for months. Sometimes I wondered if she was truly safe. I hope Richard got the punishment he deserved. I hope Angelina is safe and happy. I've been working the front desk at a motel in a remote area for about 5 years. It's not much to look at. I can't look anyway. But from what people tell me, it's everything you'd expect from a neglected place in the middle of nowhere. Cracked asphalt, flickering neon signs, and rooms that smell of stale cigarettes and industrial disinfectant. It's pure necessity, not comfort. Being blind has its advantages in this job. I don't have to see stains on the carpet or peeling wallpaper. I don't have to watch cockroaches scurry across the counter when I turn on the lights. My hearing is all I have, and after 5 years of working the night shift, I've learned to read people by their voices, their footsteps, their breathing. You'd be surprised what you can hear when you're forced to listen. Most of our guests are predictable. Hunters who set out before dawn, their boots heavy with tarpaulin, their voices muffled by too much cigarette smoke and not enough sleep. Fishermen talking in low, excited tones about the lake 20 miles north. Long-haul truckers who just need a place to crash for 6 hours before getting back on the road. Then there are the others, the ones I've learned to call the bad guys. They pay cash, never give their real names, and there's a nervousness in their voices that makes my skin crawl. They're probably drug dealers or gang members who need a hiding place. Maybe worse, but they're self-indulgent, and as long as they don't cause trouble, I mind my own business. The night of the incident began as usual. Rain pounded against the office windows and I played the radio low, a late-night talk show about UFO sightings. It was just after 11 p.m. when I heard the car pull into the parking lot. It wasn't a trucker's roaring diesel engine or some unlucky person's stalling engine. This was different. The office door chimed as it opened, letting in a gust of cold air and the smell of rain. Footsteps approached the counter, measured, unhurried. An elderly man by the sound of it, probably in his 70s. "Good evening," he said, and I immediately felt myself relax. His voice was warm, grandfatherly, the kind of voice that would read bedtime stories or offer you candy from a bowl on the kitchen table. "I'm hoping you have a room available for the night." "Sure do," I replied, turning toward his voice. "Just the one night?" "Yes, just tonight. I'm passing through on my way to see my daughter." I started the routine, fingers moving across the keyboard by muscle memory. "I'll need a credit card and ID." He slid the card across the counter, the plastic making a soft scraping sound against the wood. I ran it through the machine and waited. The familiar beep, beep, beep of a declined transaction filled the silence. "I'm sorry," I said. "It looks like this card was declined. Do you have another one?" "Oh goodness," he chuckled, and there was genuine embarrassment in his tone. "Let me try my other card. Sometimes that bank is finicky with their fraud protection." The second card yielded the same result, then the third. "I'm so sorry about this," he said, and I could hear the frustration in his voice tinged with genuine shame. "I don't understand what's going on with my cards. Would you accept cash?" "I have enough for the room, of course," I said. Cash was actually preferable, no processing fees, and it meant I could skip some of the paperwork. "That'll be $68 for the night." I heard the rustle of bills as he counted them out, placing them neatly on the counter. His hands brushed mine briefly as he handed over the money, soft, papery skin, the kind that comes with age. "I really do apologize for the trouble," he said again. "I'll have to call my bank in the morning. Technology these days, you know. Sometimes it feels like it's working against us older folks." I completed the check-in, handing him the key to room 6. "No trouble at all, mister." I paused, realizing he'd never given me a name for the cash transaction. "William," he said smoothly. "William. Well, Mr. William, room 6 is just down the way, third door on your right. If you need anything, I'll be here all night." "You're very kind." "Thank you." I listened to his footsteps as he left, the door chiming softly behind him. A few minutes later, I heard a car door slam and an engine start up again, then the sound of tires on wet asphalt as he drove around to park in front of his room. Normal. Everything about the interaction had been completely normal. The next few hours passed quietly. I dozed fitfully in my chair, the radio playing softly in the background. Around 2:30 a.m., I was pulled from half-sleep by the sound of car doors slamming outside, multiple doors. Then footsteps, heavy boots, moving with purpose. The office door opened, the chime sounding harsh in the sudden tension. "Good evening," a voice said, professional, authoritative. "I'm Sheriff Morrison. This is Deputy Collins. We're looking for information about a guest who might have checked in earlier tonight." My chest tightened. "What kind of information?" "Someone tried to use a stolen credit card at several locations tonight. The last attempt was here, around 11:15. Can you tell us about that transaction?" My mouth went dry. "Mr. William," his warm, embarrassed voice echoed in my memory. The card was declined. 3 times, actually. He paid cash instead." "He paid cash?" The sheriff's tone sharpened. "What room?" "Room 6. His name was John William, but I didn't see an ID since he paid cash." I heard the two officers exchange glances, that brief silence that speaks volumes when you can't see faces. "We're going to need the spare key to that room," Sheriff Morrison said. "And I want you to stay here in the office, understand? Don't come outside no matter what you hear." The fear that had been building in my chest exploded into full panic. What's going on? Is he dangerous? But they were already moving, their footsteps echoing across the parking lot. I heard the jangle of keys, then the distinctive sound of a door being unlocked. Room 6 was only about 40 feet from the office, close enough that I could hear their muffled voices through the walls. "Sheriff, you need to see this. Jesus Christ, call it in. Get forensics out here now." Then, cutting through the night air, came a different sound, a window sliding open followed by a soft thud. Running footsteps on wet grass, growing fainter as they disappeared into the darkness beyond the motel. "He's gone," Deputy Collins shouted. "Went out the back window." My hands were shaking as I gripped the arms of my chair. The warm grandfatherly voice kept playing in my head. The embarrassment about his declined cards, the polite apologies, the way he'd said he was visiting his daughter. Sheriff Morrison returned to the office about 20 minutes later. "I need you to step outside for a minute," he said. "But don't go near room 6. There's a strong chemical smell in there. Could be dangerous." I did as he asked, moving carefully across the familiar path to stand near the road. Even from that distance I could catch whiffs of something sharp and acrid on the night air, something that made my nose burn and my eyes water. The next few hours were a blur of activity. More police cars arrived, their radios crackling in the night. I heard the forensics team setting up their equipment, the snap and rustle of crime scene tape being strung around room 6. No one told me what they'd found, but I caught fragments of conversations that made my blood run cold. Multiple hair samples, different colors and textures. "Some look fresh, Sheriff. Really fresh. Fits the description of the woman who went missing last week." As dawn broke, Sheriff Morrison sat me down in the office and asked me to go through everything again. Every detail of the interaction, every word Mr. William had spoken. I found myself defending him without meaning to. His voice had been so kind, so normal. How could someone who sounded like that be capable of? "That's the thing about predators," the sheriff said quietly. "The successful ones don't look or sound like monsters. They look like your neighbor, your grandfather, your friendly bank teller. It's the ones who seem perfectly normal that you have to watch out for." Days passed. The forensics team finished their work and room 6 was sealed indefinitely. Sheriff Morrison stopped by regularly to ask if Mr. William had returned, if I'd heard anything, but there was never any sign of him. No one matching his description was caught. John William, if that was even his real name, had vanished as completely as his victims. The hardest part wasn't the fear, though that was bad enough. It was the doubt. Every night since then, when I hear that office door chime, my heart starts racing. A polite good evening from a tired trucker sounds sinister now. An apologetic laugh from a businessman whose card is declined makes my skin crawl. The hunters and fishermen who'd always seemed harmless now carry an edge of menace in their voices. I've started keeping a baseball bat behind the counter. Sheriff Morrison taught me how to trigger the silent alarm that connects directly to the station. But mostly I just listen. I listen to every voice, every footstep, every breath, searching for something I might have missed that night. Some sign that should have warned me that I was talking to a monster. The truth is, there wasn't one. Mr. Williams sounded exactly like what he claimed to be, a polite old man having trouble with his credit cards, embarrassed by the inconvenience, grateful for my understanding. If I met him again tomorrow, I'd probably react the same way. And that's what terrifies me most of all, because now I know that evil doesn't announce itself with a scary voice or threatening words. Sometimes it says please and thank you. Sometimes it apologizes for the trouble. Sometimes it tells you it's going to visit its daughter, and you believe it completely. The Sunset Motel is quiet tonight, rain pattering against the windows just like it was that Tuesday 5 months ago. The radio is playing the same late-night talk show, and I'm sitting in the same chair, waiting for the door to chime. But everything has changed. Every voice that comes through that door might belong to someone like Mr. William, someone whose politeness masks something unspeakable. Someone who pays in cash and disappears into the night, leaving behind only the ghost of their warm, friendly voice and the knowledge that monsters don't always look like monsters, they just sound human.